Golden Doves and Silver Dots, class 17. In the introduction, page Roman numeral 18, top of the page, Rabbeinu Bachya ibn Pakula described the speech process as a kind of writing or translation. Right? So how's speech, how words are writing or translation? Because speech is the pen of the heart. So the heart, again, has the thought. And it's the words of the mouth, or rather, it's the words that, so to speak, write the thought, right? So speech is the pen of the heart, the translator of the soul, because whenever you speak, you're just translating a thought, right? You're translating a particular thought. It's a thought, and you're translating it into symbols called words. And the emissary of the thoughts, right? So again, the words, I think I mentioned this in the last class, come to think of it, the words are a type of malachim. So you have these thoughts, and I want to share these thoughts with the second person, I being the first person. So the malachim that, so to speak, take the thoughts, my thoughts, and give it to the second person, those are the words, that's speech. A similar process is also present in the language of dreams. That's fascinating. So dreams are just symbols. So here also, you have thought, a person is preoccupied with something. So if you want to convey the thoughts first person to second person, if you want to convey the thoughts to somebody outside of yourself, your mind transforms the thoughts into words, and then the second person hears the words, and he can, in this way, partake in that thought, in the thoughts of the first person. A very similar thing happens with dreams. In dreams, there's a first person. The only thing is that the second person, in the case of dreams, is the first person. So what happens in dreams? So as I said, you have thoughts. Normally you transform them into words, and the words are the malachim that carry the thoughts onto the second person. In the case of dreams, the first person has thoughts. That's you. You have a thought. The neshama transforms it into the symbols that we see in the dreams. And these symbols are now shared with the same first person. Well, just to be a bit more accurate, so you have these unconscious or subconscious thoughts that the conscious is not aware of, but the neshama wants to make you conscious, wants to make you aware of these things that preoccupy it. It wants to speak with you. So how can the neshama speak with you? It has these important things to say. And the answer is through dreams. So dreams serve the same function as speech. Dreams are the speech of the neshama, whereas words are the speech of the first person to the second person, right? So that's the point of dreams. The dream that one recalls is a transformation of an original dream, never remembered exactly, except in prophetic vision. So it's fascinating. So you have the dream starts with a thought. You never remember the thought. You only remember the transformation of the thought, which is the dream. Does anybody here have a dream and they remember the thought that the neshama took and transformed to the dream? No, so you never remember the thought. The only exception to that is when a Navi has a nevu'ah. And nevu'ah is similar to dreaming in that there is the thought, and the thought is transformed into the symbolic vision that the Navi sees. So sir nafuach ani ro'eh. So misafon tipatach hara'ah. So Yirmiyah Hanavi remembers the thought, which is misafon tipatach hara'ah, and he remembers the symbol, which is sir nafuach ani ro'eh. So that's the difference between a nevuah and a dream. In a dream, you only remember the transformation of the thought, which is a dream. In a nevuah, you may remember the initial. The Navi does remember the symbol, yes. He sees the visions, yes. And many times he also remembers the untransformed vision, meaning the original message, which has not been transformed into symbols. Rabbi Yitzhak Karo, 15th and 16th century, he was the uncle of Maran Kadosh, suggested this principle when distinguishing. I'm sorry, I apologize. Again, Rabbi Yitzhak Karo, the uncle of Maran, suggested this principle when discussing Pharaoh's dreams, right? So, the famous Perashat Nuqqes, Vahi Nuqqes Shenatayim Yamim Ufaro Cholem Hinne Omed Al Hayor, right? So in there, Rabbi Yitzhak Karo, he discusses the idea of thought, transformation of thought, meaning dream, right? Although Rabbi Yitzhak Karo was discussing prophetic dreams in particular, the principle of transformation applies to dreams in general. So in that case, Rabbi Yitzhak Karo was discussing the idea of nevuah and how nevuah works. And as I said, how does nevuah work? So nevuah works. Well, in that case, it's a malach that comes to the Navi. And the malach that comes to the Navi has a message. And the message is transformed into a symbolic a vision, or a vision filled with symbols, right? But that same process happens in every dream. And here's a quote from Rabbi Yitzhak Karo. When one dreams a prophetic dream, one sees the truth itself. Again, Ki shoked ani al devari la'asoto, right? He sees the makel shaked, right? So he sees the actual vision also, that Hashem is shoked al devaro. Hashem is shoked to do his davar. Okay? Pharaoh had actually seen 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine, but his imagination had transformed them into 7 cows and 7 stalks, since they resemble plenty and famine. So according to Yitzhak Karo, the dream of Pharaoh was a prophetic dream. And as a prophetic dream, Pharaoh first saw, again as we saw, in the Nevuah, you first see the emet, and then the emet is transformed. The emet comes from the malach, and then the emet is transformed into a symbol. And the Navi always remembers the symbol. Like there's many cases where Daniel Navi, towards the second half of the book. So in the second half of the book, where Daniel sees the vision, but he doesn't understand what he's seeing because he doesn't remember the meaning of the vision, right? So that Paro did not remember the meaning of what he saw. But his imagination had transformed them into 7 cows and 7 stalks, since they resemble plenty and famine. That's the end of the quote from Rabbi Yitzhak Karo. Continuing in the book. Iteration of the golden doves results in countless silver dots variations.